Hello, everyone. Welcome. I guess this is technically, is this now episode one? Is this episode two? Like episode one, we can't really post anywhere. So,
Let's call this episode 2, and
yeah,
episode 1 is lost to time.
time agreed. So this is welcome to episode two of
And
Musical Podcast
maybe
Goes
like
Here.
the unreleased episode 1 will be like a charity goal someday.
Yeah, we'll post it somewhere if we can find it. We'll like post it on freaking like Putlocker or something.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the musical podcast that goes here with a name we still don't have, even though we're in episode two. I am Sam, and I'm joined by Steb. And Steb, this is your pick today, right?
Yeah.
Last the episode one was my pick, lost the time, and here we are with an actual good pick.
That's right. Nobody will know what that first episode was. But yeah, today we're talking about Metallica.
Yeah, it's Metallica, but
Which like if we're going through like formative things in our collective young lives, like
mhm.
this was inevitable, I think, for me. So like, you know, getting there sooner rather than later.
I agree. We'd kind of talked about, in Mythical episode one, we'd kind of talked about how that song was important to me in some ways, but we talked about how like it was like that was a song that impacted me. So it's one of those things that we might as well continue to talk about that. Where is this going? Where are you going? I was
Where's
trying to
what
change
going?
scenes. I was trying to change scenes, but for some reason this window capture is not agreeing with me. Oh well. Uh,
Yeah. So for folks who are watching on YouTube or live, I guess, um, we're changing it up a bit to be able to not get immediately blocked, and so we won't be actually listening to the songs, but all of there will be a link to the song in the description,
yeah.
um
So you can
so you
listen
can,
along while we're doing this if you'd like.
yeah, so you can either like listen to the whole thing and then listen to us, or like listen along as we talk about it, or what. But
Whatever have you.
until we have kind of a better way to do that without getting immediately copyright claimed, that's I think the play
Yeah,
for
that's where we're gonna be.
now.
Uh, yeah.
So I'll start this off actually by asking you, like, do you have any attachment or nostalgia for ye old Metallica,
So I
or
I
did they
actually
completely miss you?
I actually here's the thing, like I don't, but at the same time they were not outside my like worldview. They were like a band I knew about. They were a band that I had like heard of. They were metal, and
Oh yeah.
that was the like cool thing about them was that they were like this metal band that like as a young impressionable teenage youth, it was the like don't in the 90s especially, it was the don't listen to metal, it'll ruin you, it'll corrupt you. Little did we know.
Yeah,
Little did we
and
actually
these
know.
and like this album art of like a bunch of crosses
Yeah.
being you like puppet master crosses being used as headstones with like the
Yeah.
two hands
It, no,
certainly
mm,
didn't
yeah.
contribute
No.
to giving them a more of a positive image. But like
No.
that's one of the cool things about old Metallica,
Yeah.
is that they were always kind of like doing their own thing.
Mhm.
I know a bunch of random old Metallica facts that I may pepper into this,
I really hope
including
so.
do you know what Metallica, do you know what their first name they wanted to use was they were before they called themselves Metallica?
No, what was that?
They wanted to call themselves Metal Up Your Ass.
Can't
This is
imagine that
a
would have gone well. That's
Yeah,
incredible though.
and this is like a thing that like back in like the 80s and the early 90s and stuff, they would like say at shows, and like people would get all into it. And there actually is a an old Metallica Metal Up Your Ass t-shirt, which is a picture
That's
of a
incredible.
toilet with like a knife coming out of the toilet. Like a
That is
hand holding a knife
that
coming out
is
of the toilet.
wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
imagine I can't imagine people were on board with that too much.
I mean, their fans absolutely were.
Absolutely were.
You know.
I agree. So,
Um,
so like, question to you, because Master
mhm,
of Puppets is like arguably their, I wouldn't say that like arguably their greatest album in a lot of ways. Like, it's definitely got a lot of their hits on it. So why
right.
Battery of all of them?
Okay. So in order to understand why battery, um, I need to paint a word picture for you.
Please.
Um, I want you to imagine a young, like 12 to 13-year-old Steph, uh, growing up in a small town in Connecticut,
Sure.
uh, and I was like getting ready to mow the lawn. And when you're mowing the lawn, like you've seen my old house, we had like a big yard, so like
Yeah.
mowing the lawn was always like a day long
Yeah.
kind of
That
thing.
was a
And I would
process. Yeah.
always I would always like bring a CD player out, and I would just like jam like one album, and I'd have enough time to like listen to the
Hmm.
album like 3 4 times through, whatever.
Okay.
um and so someone like an old person in my life burned me a copy of Master of Puppets, the Metallica album,
Okay.
and my
Makes
parents
sense.
didn't know, because my parents were actually pretty protective. um I'll probably revisit this when we inevitably talk about Linkin Park, but
Yeah.
like Hybrid Theory was the first album that I bought, and in order to convince my parents that
Oh
I
no.
could buy it, I had to go on dial-up internet and print out the lyrics to every single song to
What?
prove to my parents that Linkin Park did not swear once on all of Hybrid Theory,
That's insane. That's a lot of.
which
That's such a waste.
which by the way, they do not swear once on all of Hybrid Theory.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but
Um,
didn't? No, that's odd. Okay.
so so um young impressionable had just started to like pick up and learn the bass. Steve loads up this album
Sure.
while mowing the lawn, and uh the like battery plays, and
Sure.
like the little acoustic intro plays, and because I was mowing the lawn I couldn't really fucking hear it.
Okay.
um but then like the song kicks in,
Hmm.
and like those like harmonized guitars at the beginning hit, and then it like kind of like kicks into like the full song,
Yeah.
and my little like brain, which at that point only really knew like jazz, classical show tunes and like
Yeah.
pop tunes and stuff,
Yeah.
was like blown, and there was just like no coming back after that.
No, there's
At
really
that
not. Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
like this whole album, like I could probably talk about like the songs on this album forever.
Hmm.
But like Battery, I wanted to talk about because it is just such a fucking good opener for an album.
Yeah. I was like, because this was song number one too, right?
Yeah,
Uh, there's a whole discussion to be had about like opening songs on CDs and like how memorable
absolutely.
were they and stuff like that. That is actually something that I find fascinating. But yeah, you're right. Like just kind of pulling up the chords and like looking at what they're doing there. Like I'm looking here and I'm seeing acoustic guitar 4. Like that's an
Yeah, so
insane
like
like it's an insane amount of like just how much they had
yeah,
to put in to get that sound.
so they were doing a lot of multi-track stuff on this album,
Hmm.
and a lot of harmony stuff on this album, which is a thing that not a lot of metal bands and thrash metal bands
Yeah,
at
that
the
was that
time
was
were
new at the
doing.
time.
Like, oh, it wasn't new. I think the most like notable other band that was doing it at the time was like Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden
Uh,
maybe. Yeah.
but that's because Iron Maiden, just in their band Static, had 3 guitars,
You
and
just
so
say,
they got to do a lot of like cool stuff with
yeah,
like the fact that they had 3 guitars, and they could do a lot of stuff live that like Battery as
yeah.
it sounds
You
on
couldn't
this
really,
album,
yeah, you
like
can't,
doesn't it sounds different live. It still
yeah,
sounds cool live,
yeah.
obviously, like it still slaps, but like
It's not the
this is
same.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of that like harmony stuff has to do with Cliff Burton,
Of
who
course.
was the original bassist in Metallica, probably one of the biggest influences on me musically, um, and the only one in the band that had any sort of like actual musical
Musical
training or
musical
anything like
training.
that. which I like. I could talk a lot about Cliff Burton, but like one of the things that I think is really neat is that he doesn't he's not pretentious about it, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of cool bits in this album and like early Metallica and stuff where like you can tell that it's him that like kind of brought it together, but he's not all over the album in such a way that like he's just writing all of it. He's
Yeah.
still like leaving the space for
Hmm.
like the other members of the band to like bring their own
Yeah.
ideas and stuff in, and like and like kind of like taking all of these disparate riffs that like
Yeah.
different people are writing and like letting people solo however they want, and like from that he's like writing these like very cool bridges and like intros
Hmm.
and like
Yeah.
transitional things, and like I think that like really gives this album and Ride the Lightning, their previous album, like this really cool um just like
It,
vibe.
yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say because
um
I've having listened to it prior when we were like really setting this up, I remember specifically thinking like, wow, this song does like a really good job of actually setting up everybody at various points for like a moment of something cool. Like there was definitely a couple moments where I was like, hell yeah, this is like a sweet drum fill that like absolutely like they just dropped in this drum fill, like perfectly nailed it. Sounds great.
yeah,
Like fits in
and
right.
Lars Ulrich, the
Yeah.
drummer of Metallica, famously
Famously.
of like taking down like fighting against like Napster and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, like far and away the worst part of Metallica.
Oh yeah, no. But like
but like the song and like this album still makes him sound cool, so
yeah,
it's
that's the
like
thing. Yeah.
really I think a testament to the uh like there's a lot of like there's a lot of lightning in a bottle kind of things
Mm,
that like made old Metallica really kind of like like swing and sing the way that it did,
yeah.
and I think that a large part of that is Cliff Burton like putting all of that
Oh
shit
yeah.
together.
There is something to be had in being the leader of the band that like makes it all come together and all work and that too. So there's because I get that. And even checking through like the because you're kind of mentioning the like the different parts like I pulling up the drum solo not sorry the guitar solo here,
Yeah,
like I'm
the
looking
guitar
at it.
solos are all over the fucking place
Yeah,
for
they're
sure.
like they're
So
like yeah, they're like not they're kind of wild, but like I can like I can read enough tablature. If you can read enough
mhm,
if you can read any tabs at all, you can kind of like get a grip at like what it's doing
yeah,
on screen. But like
and
it's not like crazy, it's not insane, but it does its job and it sounds
well,
pretty metal.
it is insane because one of the things that you can't get from a tab, and you can't really get until you like listen to these songs, is just like how fucking fast they are.
Oh yeah, that's
And
fast
like
as crap, yeah.
they're like thrash metal, speed metal, whatever you want to call it. But like I have like notes that I took because I listened to this the other day, and I just
Hmm.
kind of like wrote down some thoughts. And like one of the things that I said, and like I definitely like thought this when I was a kid,
Yeah.
like when I was younger and listening to this for the first time. It's just like, who knew guitars could be played that fast?
Yeah, that's
Because like
true.
when
You're right.
I was a kid when I was hearing this shit for the first time, like I had no fucking clue like what was possible on like a guitar or a bass or whatever,
Wasn't like
and just like
yeah,
hmm?
finish it up.
Go ahead.
Finish up the thought. Sorry. Now to say like, but isn't that like a staple of like metal like guitar sound is like a lot of like hammer-ons, pull-offs, and those kinds of like maneuvers
Oh
and things
yeah,
like that. Like that's kind of like a like
absolutely,
part of the
yeah,
sound to it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And like Kirk Hammett, who's the guitar player here who does the soloing, um, he is like not the most like technical guitar player.
Yeah.
He's no like John Petrucci from Dream Theater was all like Dream Theater was also a band around this time.
Yeah.
And like what they were doing was also just like pushing the envelope but in a much different direction.
Hmm.
Um but like Hammett was never like from a technical level like on that level, but like the feels and the vibes of his solos are like undeniable. Like
Oh yeah.
the just like the like uh the what is going on in them, the lead up to them, how it transitions back into like the chorus or the verse or whatever. um like and a lot of that is also like Cliff Burton like kind of like helping to write the song in such a way that it goes in and out of the guitar solos in like a cool way, you know, like
Yeah.
like if you think about like the build up of this song as it builds up into like the big guitar solo that's like
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 minutes and changing or something like that.
Hmm.
um there's like this like really cool like breakdown where like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I
the
know what you're talking
drums
about.
and the rhythm guitar are just like hitting, and then there's like this like like not weird, but like there's like this arpeggiated
It's a
riff
different
in the
sound. Yeah.
guitar that
Yeah.
but like that kind of stuff is like what I think sets this song, this album, this era of this band
Yeah.
apart from a lot of other like speed metal stuff. It's just like way more melodic than you would think.
Oh yeah, 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 definitely. It's funny because in my initial listen through of this song, I was
Mhm.
kind of like, and this is like, I know this is like a personal pet peeve for me, is I'm very much not a fan of like songs that kind of feel like they're jarring, or like they're like cut from one musical idea directly to like the next one without a warning, which has become like a
Mhm.
popular thing now for music. But like on my, and like that initially was like, I was like, oh, that felt kind of weird to like listen to and do that. But like second and third time I was like, no wait, no, that's just me. I think that was just like, I think it's just like that was the best way they could do it at the time. So like those kinds
Mhm.
of, because it's hard, like how do you just go from like absolutely shredding and tearing it up to like kind of like, it's kind of like the musical ups and downs of it all, right? Like how do you really do that when
Yeah.
you go so high and come back down? And this, it has its moments, it goes like down and like brings it down, but it never like drops down to where it starts at, really. And it's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting thing about it.
Yeah, and I think the best thing to kind of like take that idea and roll with it is like the acoustic intro, right?
Hmm.
Like it literally starts off with like one guitar playing like four
Yeah.
chords.
Yeah.
Um with like a hammer on in there that kind of like
Yeah.
resolves this like a suspension.
Yeah.
Um but like you know it starts on that, and then it like slowly builds these layers. We talked about like the layering in the
Yes.
recording, so it like starts with that, it adds this melodic line, and then it
Yeah.
adds harmonies, and then it adds harmonies, and then it adds
Yeah.
harmonies, and like
So
to
many
the
guitar
point where like
tracks.
when it goes from like this acoustic stuff to like when the band kicks in with like
Yeah.
the distorted guitars and the
Yeah.
drums and everything, like it feels like the logical kind of like progression of that. And
Hmm.
then when the heavy stuff kicks in, we're not done building, motherfuckers. We're
Yeah. We're
adding
still
in
climbing.
this like chromatics in the distorted guitars, and
Yeah.
we're still climbing, and we're still building, and we get these big bum
Yeah.
bum bum
Yeah.
bum, and now we're in the song. You know,
Yeah.
like
No, I
it's
agree with
like
you.
it's such a cool just like
It's a journey. It really is like a musical journey to like kick off
yeah
this album.
in like 30 seconds it's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah. It
here's what
actually
we're
is.
about,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
was thinking that was kind of one of my first thoughts. I was like, wow, this track was a journey, and like as an opening track that holds up. But let's
Mhm.
jump over. Let's step away from the music to the other part of this. Let's jump to the lyric stuff because I have a question for you, and this was kind of my thought on like the second and third re-listen.
Sure.
Uh, what's the metaphor for battery here? Because they reference it as like so many different things, but I'm sitting here like staring at it, and I'm like, all right, like obviously, like 13-year-old me would have just been like, this is a hella metal song, sounds awesome, great.
Yeah.
But like me, older, say, I'm looking at it and be like, the fuck are they talking about?
So like so there's a couple of ways to interpret it here. My favorite is that they are literally just talking about a battery. like, like they're just really fucking excited to
They're just
like get
really
their new
excited for this
9
very
volt for
large
their
battery.
flashlight, you know. They just got their 4 AA's to like put in their Game Boy or whatever. like,
The literal
um
interpretation is always the best sometimes.
but like you know uh like they like it could be that, it could be like the you know the braggadocious nature of like 80s
Yeah,
you know metal bands and stuff, just like we're not gonna fucking stop, we're just like we're the Energizer Bunny over here,
yeah.
motherfuckers.
It also,
um
yeah, it has big like rebel against the system kind of vibes as I'm like looking through the lyrics, and it's like talking about how it's like the battery rules all, the battery like
yeah,
it's just very interesting because I was like, this is
is
describes
the
so many
battery
different,
just capitalism?
is, yeah, I was like, is the battery just capitalism? Like
Yeah,
uh
and like Metallica has never been like particularly inspired when it comes to their lyrics.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Yeah.
would say their lyrics get like
That's
I
worse.
would say that like in the entirety of Metallica's career, which like they're still going, by the way. They put out an
Yeah.
album like
Yeah. They put
either
an
a
album.
year or 2 years ago or
Yeah.
something. They are still going.
Yeah.
Um and like much like a battery, they just won't die.
Yeah. They just
Um
literally.
uh like they just like uh I totally lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
I'm
They
sorry.
like that's okay. Like yeah, because even thinking about it, like Master of Puppets, the song itself has like some pretty good lyrics, but like I think I would argue like overall, because having listened to several like Metallica albums in my years, like their words have never been the thing that have pressed me. It's always been their playing, and I think that
Yeah.
that's fine. You don't necessarily like this genre wasn't necessarily about
Mhm.
like we weren't like
Yeah,
I don't
this is
yeah this isn't about the
the
words necessarily.
yeah, like a lot of bands, and like the first time that I really heard or the first time I really like heard this and it made me think about it was actually the band Mastodon.
Mm.
Like when Mastodon had an album coming out when I was like a teenager and I was into metal at that point. So I was like following all that shit. Like the singer from Mastodon, or like one of the singers, because like everyone in that band sings at one point or
Yeah,
another. Like they literally talk about how they don't treat the lyrics of a song or the words of a song. Like they don't care about the words that they're writing. They're using the voice as essentially another instrument. And so they're just using it as a melodic line. And so they're
interesting.
writing the vocal melody and then they're just like putting words in to kind of like fit that.
Make it fit that.
And then they make it like mildly coherent later or whatever.
That's that's an interesting way to go about yeah, that's an
Yeah.
interesting way to go about that. Like I don't hate it because like that's the thing is I feel like once you like metal as like a like 80s 90s metal was very shrouded in like whatever, if there was something they were trying to say, it was all kind of just like like not like traditionally, not just like the scare like 666 devil stuff, but like it was just easy to
Yeah,
like
I
do
mean,
that.
a lot of that stuff. I mean, like we could probably do an episode about Iron Maiden
Yeah.
at some point, but
Um,
a lot of the like Satan shit in
yeah.
like the devil music and stuff in metal is like all done in a
It's
very tongue in cheek way,
yeah.
like kind of on purpose, because that's like what society labeled them as, and so
Hmm.
like like Iron Maiden wrote like Number of the Beast in a
Yeah.
way to be like very very like tongue in cheek of just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what everyone thinks of us, so I guess let's like write a song about discovering a satanic ritual and
Might as
doing
well,
that.
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Um like yeah, it's all, it was an aesthetic, it was
It was just like a
a
part of the genre almost.
yeah, and like it still is largely,
Yeah.
but like yeah, at the time it was almost like they were trying to be like off-putting on purpose,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Metallica's first album is called Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That says, yeah, and that says, that's a great opener. The other thing I noticed that you alluded to this in me, and I kind of noticed it like similarly in you, because we also, as enjoyers of like ska and things like that, similarly, like, what is the crossover between like group vocals and metal and ska? Like, what is like, I think there's just something for that. There has to be.
um, I mean, I'm sure that there is. It's like gang vocals
Yeah.
in like metal is like largely in like live performances where
Yeah.
bands will like get people
Like
to,
to like rile
you
up and
know,
sing it. Yeah.
yeah, but like I think the like gang vocals as a thing like was like largely a punk thing. Like I think
Yeah,
that's
I could
where
see that. Yeah,
that
I could.
started, which like brings in this like I don't know, gang vocals to me have always kind of like elicited this like feeling, this sense of like community
Hmm.
of like we're all doing this thing. We're all
We're all
here. We're
here.
all like we're all in this moment, like sharing this moment together, and like we're all singing, are joining our voices together,
Yeah.
and like I think that's like a very uh big like counterculture punk thing.
Yeah, but I would
um
argue that like this kind of metal like was counterculture in a
Absolutely.
lot of ways. Like I would argue that this almost kind of leads into that kind of like punk grunge. Like if you like check the timeline, this is like the start of that some of that stuff, I would argue.
Sure. Sure. I mean, like, this isn't even the start. This is like the continuation because
Yeah,
that should
really.
start,
Started
the
forever ago.
70s, the 80s. Like there were punk bands doing that kind of shit.
Yeah. Even as far back as like,
Protesting.
yeah, even as like far back as protest songs, yeah. But
Mhm.
let's speaking of that, because you mentioned to this earlier, Steve, do you know where they are now? Like, I've grabbed Wikipedia just to kind of like grab a check, but like, do you know what they've been up to?
I know they've put out an album like relatively recently. Here's the thing: is like Metallica like has like they have like three and a half like incredible albums.
Yeah,
Um,
everything after, everything after.
and then like for anyone who doesn't know the history of Metallica, like Cliff Burton, their bassist, who I've talked a lot about, like tragically passes away in a
Hmm.
bus accident, like while they're touring this album. Um, and they had like half written their fourth album, Injustice for All, and so they had to replace him. They replaced him with Jason Newsted, who like
Hmm.
when I was a kid, I used to fucking hate. I fucking hated Jason Newsted. He was so shitty and so bad. And like in hindsight, with the years of experience that I have, both as a person and as a musician, he was fine.
Yeah,
He like
perfectly
he
fine.
was
Yeah,
probably he's probably like a fine above average like bass player
yeah,
or whatever, but just like he wasn't Cliff Burton, and like
yeah.
Cliff
It's not.
Burton was like who I kind of like grew up idolizing, and like
Yeah,
you're gonna have harsh feelings about like the person who replaces your idol,
yeah,
like
yeah. There's
you.
definitely a lot of groups you talk about for that stuff. So yeah, I feel that.
Sure, absolutely. But then they like put out Injustice for All, which like um still feels like an old Metallica album. It's a very
Mhm.
wonky album, I will say. You can't hear the bass in like most of it because it's like mixed really down low. It's like just a really weirdly produced album. And then after that, you have the Black Album, which is where like Enter Sandman is from, which is where Metallica kind of becomes mainstream.
Yeah,
But like that's where a lot of people point to as like Metallica like selling out and like going like uh just like like
yeah,
writing more of like in more of like a pop style,
yeah. Like keeping themselves
uh
relevant in some ways.
yeah, which is like again, when I was younger and like didn't know this shit, I was like this is like unplayable. Like it's
Yeah,
just like so shitty.
yeah,
Like how could this happen to this band? And like now looking at it in hindsight, like it's fine. Like the Black Album is objectively a good album, and i'm
yeah,
and i'm able to admit that now. But like do I like it? No, because it won't ever be the same as like a Master of Puppets or a Ride the
yeah.
Lightning,
I agree.
or even a Kill 'Em All. Even though Kill 'Em All is still pretty rough around the edges, but I feel like Ride the Lightning was where
Hmm.
they like
Oh, they caught their
really
stride.
started
Yeah,
to hit their stride, and then their stride was perfected in Master of Puppets, which is
I
like
agree.
just
Yeah,
it's just
that's just
still their best
yeah,
album. It's like not even
yeah.
close.
That's not a question. Yeah,
Um, and like like from there, like they did a bunch of albums with Jason, and
yeah.
then Jason left, and then they have
Robert
yeah,
Trujillo. Yeah.
yeah, who's the old bass player from Suicidal Tendencies. I don't know if you know that
Oh
band.
God, I used to listen to them too. Yeah, yeah. I used to listen to them too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He was their bass player. Now
Okay.
he's still with them, I think.
Yeah, he's still with them to
And
the
and he's
present. Yeah,
and he's yeah, and he's cool. Like I would probably think much better of him had he not had he like once again like not replaced like Cliff
yeah,
Burton, who is just like this dude who like who even knows like one of the great tragedies of metal is like what the fuck would Cliff Burton even be doing right now?
yeah.
Like if he were still around, like what would Metallica even sound like now?
Oh
Like
yeah,
if you think about like how sick like Ride the Lightning is and how fucking crazy Master of Puppets is, and like you can hear with Injustice for All, you can hear like where that album was going, and it's like really kind of a bummer that it's in like this kind of like half finished state. Um, but like it's still really cool, and it's
Yeah.
just like it makes you just like feel really, it feels, you feel even more bummed, not just that like,
Yeah.
not just because it's like this dude died and it's like really sad and it's tragic, but
Hmm.
like, you know, what would they
What would have
even
been?
sound like
Yeah.
now, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Where would it
like
have gone?
it
Yeah.
would, yeah, like with like modern technology, like this dude, uh like, you know, supplementary listening if
Mhm.
anyone wants, and if anyone wants to like hear some crazy shit, and or Blood, if you want to go on a nostalgia trip, go to Kill 'Em All and listen to Anesthetize, uh comma pulling teeth, or not comma, parentheses
Colon
pulling teeth,
pulling teeth.
and
Yeah.
parentheses. It is like it's like a 3 minute long bass solo that he does, that Cliff Burton does, and he like did it. He used to like do it live and stuff. And he uses like distortion and like a whammy pedal, like a wah pedal. Like the way that this dude makes a bass sound is just like absolutely
Mm.
fucking crazy, and like he has all, there's all these like Bach riffs, like all of these like nerdy, like you can like hear where all the classical influences come in. I learned it, like I used to know the whole thing when I was a
That's
kid.
powerful.
um it's fucking awesome, and like I'm definitely gonna go back and listen to it later, but like
That's
yeah.
fair. So they haven't released that album. They were, according to Wikipedia, take it with a grain of salt, but they were working on something, but it is not out yet apparently. So as of May, or is it August 2020? That's where they played a show. Somewhere in the recently said, where is it? I literally was reading it while you were talking. There it is. April 2020. Ulrich said Metallica would work on its next studio album while in quarantine. So there's something coming out. So we'll have to see what that is when that comes out. Nothing's updated, so I assume it's not out yet.
Yeah.
But so there's something coming.
Yeah.
So I guess let's time to answer the question that we've all been thinking about, Stev. Does it hold up? Do you think that it's a piece that holds up and would still do well, still does well to listen to, or do you think it was just a fleeting whimsy in your childhood?
I mean, if anything, how enthusiastically I talk about this song, I think gives it away. Like, I still think this is like one of the. It's definitely one of the most formative albums in my childhood, and I think it's like, I think that is true for a lot of people. And I think that it like not only holds up, but like is still good to like listen to, and
Hmm.
like is worth listening to. Um, in
I would,
current
yeah,
year.
I would be inclined to agree. I think it is a like I think even having like listened to that and a couple others off of Master of Puppets in like the last couple days was like I think it's a good song. Like I think it holds its ground. I don't think like there's obvious reasons why like Master of Puppets itself is like the quote unquote like more popular song, but I think it's a solid song and I think it does exactly what Metallica wanted it to do perfectly well. I think it would go on like I think it's like a probably a must include on like any super like 80s metalhead playlist for certain. I would call it holds up over time.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna rate this, Stev, rate this song for us? Where do you rate this? Give us the rating on the scale.
Um, I would give this a like a solid 8 cringy current James Hetfield lyrics out of 10.
That's incredibly reasonable. I'm gonna give it like 3.5 creepy marionette puppets out of 5. Uh, I I
Yeah.
I think that seems reasonable. But
That's pretty good. Can I as a closing segment here, can I read you some
yeah, go
cringy
ahead.
James Hetfield
Please
lyrics,
please hit us
so
with
we
the
can, so
yes.
we can
Understand the
you know,
scale.
understand the scale of like where, like what are they writing now, what are they
Yes,
doing.
please do.
um All right, so these are just like one-off lines that like you would think, because like the thing about cringy lyrics is like you would think that like taken out of context, obviously like they're really fucking dumb, but like
Yeah.
I can promise you that these lyrics sound just as dumb in the context of the song as they do uh here. um so for instance, such hits as "What don't kill you make you more strong,"
Oh God.
"My lifestyle determines my death style," "I'm madly in anger with you," and
Yeah.
who could forget the awe-inspiring, inspirational lyrics of "Kill, kill, 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 kill."
I think that one of the first promotional things we're doing is just the inspirational posters of these various lyrics at this point, because those are some questionable lyrics for certain.
Yeah, I mean, "What don't kill you make you more strong" is something to
Yeah.
live by.
That is, the thought, the sentiment is there, and I respect the idea anyways.
Yeah.
All right, well,
So so next week it's your
it is.
turn. Do you have any sort of teaser that you want
Uh,
to drop
I do,
for
I do.
what people can expect?
So we're gonna jump back to a band that I don't know many people know of, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I'm probably underplaying this, but I will say that I am the only one around me growing up that listened to this band in particular and only knew about this band. But I'll say that we are taking a trip back to the alternative pop punk years.
Okay.
Not it's not your Blink 182s or your Sum 41s, but we're gonna take a look at some of the what young Sam was listening to when pop punk ran wild and ruled the world.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to that.
I genuinely think you'll like this one because if nothing else, it's got a like the song I'm gonna give you has a sweet bass riff, so I think you'll like that.
I mean, you know that all you need to do is give me a sweet bass riff and I'm
Yeah.
in. So,
Yeah. So it's got some sweet bass openers, so we'll see about that. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out with us for now episode 2. Throw money at us to get episode 1 put somewhere, and maybe we'll talk. I'm kidding. Don't do that.
yeah, don't do
Uh,
that.
do like and subscribe though if you're watching on YouTube. Press those
That's right.
buttons. Make sure you're
Right.
catching up with
Again,
this.
link in the description to the
Yep.
song that we're talking about here.
Yep.
If you wanna delve into that.
Yeah. If you want to see other more of us talking about other things, check out the Kind Words, Bright Sons and Best of Luck podcast, also on this channel too. For
Yep.
us talking about more
Definitely.
serious things that went up. Yes, that goes yesterday. We recorded that
Yeah,
yesterday,
episode
but
one went up. Episode one from last week went up
yeah,
yesterday. Episode two will go up whenever Sam uploads it from Twitch highlights.
probably
So
shortly after this.
I was gonna say that could be any time between like later today and like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, well, no, you'll never know. You'll only know by staying and keeping your eyes peeped here. So,
Yeah.
thank you all
So
for hanging out with us.
we have
Oh,
a Twitter now.
there's a Twitter now. Yeah, if you want to follow us and do that too, we do tweet things. We do lots of we do
Yeah.
some tweets, some amount of tweets.
We've tweeted at least once.
That is, you know what? That's more than me at my personal Twitter in a long while. So, thanks for hanging and listening with us, for everybody. Take care. We'll catch you next time.